This episode was made possible by my generous supporters on Patreon. A sincere thank you to Alex for the manga recommendation this month. Welcome to my returning patron, Randall. Great to have you back. Okay, it's time for the Magic the Gathering manga, and only now do I realise that I've never played it. I guess I'll need someone who has, but that guy who sold me a lore for them didn't say that it's only a booster pack with the words "Open Me" written on them. Well, I guess I'll try.
New card spell!
How did you get in here this time?
You never fixed the door I broke last time.
Oh, I guess that's fair enough. Welcome, dear all, to the podcast edition of Manga Mosaic, where we take a look at jumpstarts and one-shots old and new. Today we're not taking a look at either of those, however. We are taking a look at Destroy All Humankind, They Can't Be Regenerated, written by Issa Kurosawa, the author of Masturbation Master Kurosawa, and drawn by Yokota Takuma, who we know from some jumpstarts, some failed jumpstarts, called Welcome to the Ballroom and Shudan. Destroy All Humankind Can't Regenerate was published on November 26, 2018 in Shonen Ace. It's the same magazine as Evangelion and Future Diary, which I've only seen the anime of.
Huh. Did not know that part.
Really glad to have you on here, because I know fuck all about magic, so it's great to have you here as the representative of the expert community. The expert community of magic. What am I talking about?
Well, if I'm your expert, you got your standards set real low.
What's your experience with magic? I don't have much. Mine is basically limited to winning a starter pack with Asha at a con, and we played with each other once or twice, but we never really got much into it.
Well, I played the actual card game on and off. I think 10 years ago is when I first played it. I was curious enough about some card games, so I walked into a game store, asked them about it, and they ran me through a demo game and sold me what could get me started easily. And since then, I've at times played and at times not, and currently I'm not playing the actual card game, aside a few sealed events at the local game store. But I still have a soft spot for the game in my heart and the social aspect, since it's the only card game I've been able to play in person.
I remember when we talked about it in the ODAR chat. I think you mentioned you weren't that much of a fan of the land system, were you?
Yeah, I am not, and I never was. I mean, it's like this. In most card games, there's either no resources or they come automatically, so you just have to worry about the curve. But here, I have 4 land cards, and now I threw 3 more, and I can do absolutely fuck all with them. Or, I'm not drawing any land cards, so all these other cards, I can do fuck all with them. Because towards the end game, every land card you draw is just a dead draw. I hate that.
I guess. What do you feel about energy in Pokemon TCG?
That's hard to say because I have not played it in ages, so I can't tell how well it interacts, because at least there you have multiple Pokemon to attach them to, so I guess they never become too dead draws. Just in Magic, once you get to the end game, you have less cards to play around with. There's a limit to how much mana actually is useful.
I guess in Pokemon you attach them to your Pokemon, and some of the Pokemon cards also have the ability to gather energy.
And there are some moves or such that sacrifice energy, so you might need more, there's at least a little bit of more room to play around, but I can't give much of an experience because, as I said, I have very little experience with the Pokemon trading card game, especially the modern meta.
I guess. Well, we're not talking about the Pokemon TCG manga. I don't know whether one exists. I remember there was a Game Boy game about Pokemon trading cards, which I couldn't fathom the purpose of.
I loved that thing. I still got it on my 3DS.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah, they put it on the eShop some time ago.
Huh, okay, I got to play it sometime.
Yeah, that music is a huge needle of nostalgia right into my veins.
Okay. Destroy All Humankind, They Can't Be Regenerated is a turn-of-a-century period piece telling the story of Hajime Kano, a middle school edgelord obsessed with a very niche trading card game, Magic the Gathering. You might have heard about it.
Excuse me, he is not an edgelord, he's a chuny. There's a difference.
They specifically mentioned that they didn't have that moniker back then.
Now they have edgelord.
I guess that's fair enough. He plays Magic with friends at school, but the top student of the year, Emi Sawatari, looks down on the hobby and calls them little kids. As the number 2 student, he considers her his arch nemesis and won't stand until he defeats her, because it will be then that his saga begins. However, when Hajime visits a tournament hosting cafe, it turns out that not only does Sawatari play Magic, but also she's the undefeated champion, beating her winning streak over and over. He challenges her and initially seems to have the upper hand, but apparently a mono-black deck doesn't exactly stand a chance against mono-white.
Well, it's just back then they had all those cards that could pretty much counter a color. They weren't very fun.
It turns out that Emi doesn't really want her identity to be discovered, as she comes from a strict household and wants her status as an honor student maintained. The next day, however, Hajime challenges her to a duel, and although he puts up a great fight, he loses. As the wager was that the loser has to do anything the winner asks, Emi asks Hajime to be with her when the world ends, as according to Nostradamus' prophecy, a demon lord is going to descend from the sky the next year. The friendship budding anew after a rocky start, the two nerds continue to play children's card games as they await the new millennium. Will romance bloom, or will Armageddon come first? And most importantly, will they have enough lands? Read more to find out! Da-da-da.
Spoiler alert, they seem to always have enough lands. There's never a time where anyone just goes, shit, I'm not drawing like any lands, what the fuck is this? Which makes this pretty unrealistic. There should be at least one game where someone just goes, why the fuck am I not drawing any land cards?
Okay, so I guess this is the perfect moment to maybe start with how this game represents Magic. What do you think?
I would say that of all the card game anime and manga I've seen or read, this has the best representation of the source material, assuming there is one. And usually, there is. Or at least they make one later. Because this touches on so many things that you just don't see in normal manga or anime that represent this stuff. Like improving your deck outside of the, I suddenly have this new card that was never mentioned, but I totally had it all along, and it fits this situation perfectly. Of course, there's stuff like new cards that shift the meta, as there's several times in this that they just say, okay, at this point this new expansion came out.
Yeah, I do love that moment when Emi and Hajime go to the card shop and every one of the adult players is just fucking depressed because a new expansion has just come out and...
Oh yeah, the soul-crushing moment when the meta shifts in a way where it's not the meta shifts, but the format shifts. So some card sets become illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so suddenly your star deck, 1/3 of the cards here are no longer allowed to be played. At that point, you just gotta have to either get creative or just throw the deck. And of course, there's the equally soul-crushing moment when the meta shifts in a way where there's this one deck that's ultra powerful, everyone plays it, and the game's suddenly really fucking boring.
Yeah, when everyone just starts getting infinite mana, then...
Yeah, the Genius Turbo Engine. One thing that represents perfectly is when the boss is just reading manga as his opponent plays solitaire and just says, just tell me when you're done. That's basically what it feels like playing against those decks, where they just do their turn over all the time, and you're just hoping it's over so you can do something else and actually have fun. Just a few more notes on this. It helps a lot that there's actually the game that's already there for them to base it around, instead of even with Yu-Gi-Oh! They usually just only bring the cards out as they're making the anime, so they have to base it off that. But here, the author has clearly experienced the game in the 90s, or he has a really good consultant, since he knows history of how cards were used, what kind of decks they were in, and all kinds of shifts in meta as the Genius Turbo Engine.
I'm just wondering whether they had to license the game or...
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. They also reference quite a few existing IPs in this manga. Are Japanese copyright laws just that more lax, or do they need to pay licensing? How exactly does that work?
It's really interesting. I guess maybe the manga is just that niche that they don't really pay much attention to it.
Well, I've also heard that Japanese copyright laws are a lot more lax, but I'm not an expert in Japanese law, so don't take me as any kind of expert on this.
Yeah. So, as a newcomer, I must admit that I found their explaining of magic pretty accessible. Like, first time around when I read this, I mostly focus on the fun character dynamics that Kurosawa is really good at writing character relationships, and I'm gonna say this over and over in this manga because I'm a huge fan of Masturbation Master Kurosawa. It's probably one of my favorite manga. Yes, second time around, I found the battles pretty easy to follow, and I kind of started getting into the tactics that they presented, particularly in the duel between Hajime and Kirishima.
Yeah, and it also helps that here the duels are usually best out of 3. So they can actually have someone lose the first round and then just start sideboarding so they can think, okay, what actually gets around this strategy? Rather than just drawing the right card they had all along in their deck.
That's true. That's something. Okay, this will be a maybe weird comparison, but like between the two sports manga, if we consider the other example, that Food Wars eventually started boring us when we were recording Stammer Stream. The outcome kind of started becoming predictable, whereas in a best out of 3, it isn't really obvious every time.
Yeah, though I do tend to see a pattern that if they show someone winning a first game and they play a second, usually that's where the turnaround happens. Like, it's either 2 straight wins or the loser wins the first game. I mean, I'm not saying a criticism, just something I noticed while reading.
That's true, I guess. I would say it's pretty easy to follow. I didn't focus that much on the details, but I could mostly follow what was happening in the duels. So if you want to, regardless of whether you want to get into magic or if you're not sure, the manga's really good either way. So there's really pretty much something for everybody. Just getting to my general thoughts, it's not a series I was expecting from Kurosawa. It's definitely more lighthearted than Masturbation Master. It kind of seems like he's parodying his old style with Hajime's edgy, toony teen pathos. Kurosawa's strong suit was always character relationships, and it's very interesting to see he's as good at explorations of toxic people and their redemption arcs, as well as more lighthearted, low-stakes romance series.
Overall, I really liked it. It's just like, there aren't high stakes like in most card game manga, but that also makes it a lot more fun. Like, you can actually see the growth when the main character doesn't have to win every game or the world gets destroyed or the bully gets to tear their deck or whatever. And it has been showing Hajime's growth in great detail when he was kind of the big fish in a small pond at first, being the best at his school, but seeming like he lost every game at the card shop. And right now, with the latest chapter, he's taken on the number 2 player of the shop and won.
Yeah.
And the relationship growing between them that, well, I'll say that I think Emi's turn on Hajime was a bit too fast in the second chapter, but otherwise I really like seeing how the two's relationship grows, and they can still have a friendly relationship despite Emi kind of busting his balls all the time.
It's true.
Like, it doesn't feel antagonistic or that he should really just stop hanging out with her. They can just get back to friendly relations afterwards every time.
They do have a really nice back and forth that I really enjoy. You can't really talk about this series without talking about the characters, so shall we discuss those in more detail?
Yeah, I'd say so. And I guess we start with Hajime being the main character.
I found it difficult to discuss Hajime and Emi separately. They are very much defined by the relationship between them. So Hajime is defined by his tuniness, and Emi by her secret nerdy life under the facade of a model student. The most interesting parts of the character come from the romance, which is I would say that they're really cute together in an organic way, despite the kind of the tropiness of the relationship in concept.
Yeah, I've seen the trope of you get the girlfriend who's secretly into your nerdy stuff so that you can actually have the hot girl and be a nerd.
Oh yeah, and she's hot and she's amazing in her studies, and it turns out you have so much secretly in common.
Yeah,
but
though I wouldn't say there's no value in discussing them one at a time. Like, one thing I really like about Hajime is just how earnest and honest he is about everything. Like, he full on goes into his nerd shit. Like, he's not trying to hide. He doesn't think it's embarrassing. He'll just plain out say, like, I only lost you in exams because I was playing Xenogear too much.
Yeah.
And that's basically how he got to friendship with his best friend. Just two nerds seeing like, oh, you like this shit too? Cool. I can't remember exactly what it was that Kano just had some... what did he have? I'm gonna go back and check. You go on ahead. I'm gonna check it.
They just started discussing this out loud in class. The teacher was berating them. They just kind of started saying, "Oh, well, want to come over to my house after school? Yeah, sure. Let's play this together." It was a really fun scene as well. Kurosawa was unexpectedly really good at comedy in this. Hajame's Chunbyo over-the-topness, kind of in this realistic setting, make him quite a memorable protagonist. And I do really enjoy how his relationship with Emi is not something separate from magic, but it comes through in like little moments like Hajime using the card traded from Emi to win against Kurashima. It's kind of really woven in the game.
Yeah, and considering that they traded that card in, like, I think chapter 4, and it didn't get used until chapter 13 in a monthly manga, so that's like 9 months.
It's really nice, seeing that while reading in bulk. I don't know if the reader would, if a monthly reader would remember that, but it was quite cute. What also was cute was like Valentine's Day chapter. She made a black mana-shaped chocolate for him and just said, "You've been so down lately, I thought maybe you didn't have enough mana in you." Oh, that was really quite nice. I really enjoyed how the romance moved as quickly as it did, and that they did understand their feelings for each other soon. I understand that it's necessary for the format. It was also quite refreshing from what we usually read in Jump.
Yeah, I mean, would you say this is actually a romance manga? I think it kind of straddles the line.
I think it is overall. Most of the conflicts usually in the duels stems from that. With the introduction of Yakumo, with Kurishima's duel. I do really enjoy how the sports element in this is downplayed, and it's more like a slice of life manga of these two teens at the turn of the century, kind of just enjoying the hobbies while waiting for the end of the world that they joke about. So, what did you think about... did you want to discuss Emi?
Yeah, I guess there are a few things to mention. Like, you can read a few things into her. Like, I think her parents are divorced, because in the aforementioned Valentine's chapter, she says she wants to send some chocolates to her dad, so that implies he's not living with them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that the fact that while she is like the model student, it doesn't mean she's that popular, at least with some demographics, because there was a time when some of them were discussing how she's so uptight. And I mean, I do know the type that if you enforce the rules, there's those who want to at least get a little leeway or just break them, who won't take kindly to that.
I had to let my schoolmates copy my homework. What the hell, Emi? What are you doing? You don't just refuse them.
So that actually does happen in real life. Huh.
Oh yeah, it does all over the place in Poland. So
never happened here, as far as I know.
At least in the countryside schools, but I think that's what usually happens. I don't know.
And also one thing I like that she's allowed to have the girlier side, like she's goes for fashionable clothing, and remember the part where she just drags Hajime to be the taste judge for her clothes shopping.
Oh yeah, and he's like, oh, it's the teacher says it's fine, it's fine, let's just go.
Yeah, and yet none of that distracts from her overall character. And it's nice that she's actually the goal in terms of like the strength in the game magic itself for Hajime, being the top player at the store.
It was quite over the course of the few following chapters, I got the impression that she was the top player in chapter 1 and 2, but after a while, I thought it was kind of retcon that she's not as experienced as the other players in the shop. Don't know if I'm misremembering that.
It's hard to tell. Like, we know she got into the game around the same time as Hajime did, and she is still always shown at the top of the board when they show tournament results. Like, she's at least better than everyone else.
I guess that's fair. Do you want to talk about Yakumo?
I guess, but she's just like... I don't dislike her, but how do I put this? I guess I'm just not really sure what her role in the story overall is, being a bit more of a major character than most of the cast at the card shop.
Yeah, she's mostly there to be like the third wheel between Hajime and Emmy.
Yeah, but I'm not sure she really feels much of that role because Hajime is clearly not interested in her, and Emmy doesn't see her as a threat for that either.
You see, it's for this reason that I found her more interesting than I expected to. The romance in the series moves so fast that her entering the story informs her character more than is supposed to focus on Hajime's feelings. And it's a character I didn't expect to find so engaging. I thought her insecurity with being considered part of the magic fandom, I suppose.
It can be kind of intimidating if you're the young kid, even if you're the adult and everyone around you is kids when you're in a hobby, or a contest like that. It can feel like you're just out of place.
Yeah, I suppose. I thought her insecurity meshed well with her creepiness while in battle mode. It made her feel quite unique to me. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I just love how her eyes go all soulless whenever she's playing.
They go very Fate-like. I wasn't a fan of Hajime essentially asking if she was a cross-dresser, but obviously could really empathize with her inferiority complex and feelings of jealousy. Probably my favorite character of the bunch was Kurashima, who started like kind of just Hajime's friend, but then he kind of became interesting in his own right. He's one whose personality matches his trickster player style too, as he tries to basically be a good friend and manipulate Hajime's feelings so that he admits them in front of himself. I didn't like how part of that plan was kind of the duel being framed as let's fight to win Emmy without taking her feelings into consideration.
Yeah, that was kind of an oof moment. Okay, so the girl's just a prize for your game.
I suppose Emmy and Yakumo also do that for Hajime, so I guess equal opportunity?
I mean, yeah, they do that, so equality?
Yay! Yeah, but overall it was still my favorite duel in the entire series, despite the stakes, and I really liked Kurishima's progression from kind of just random friend at the beginning to possible rival in the tournament. He also had a really funny scene with Emmy, who she didn't know that he knew that she was into magic,
and then they just run across each other at tournament, being matched first round.
She kind of doesn't know whether to pretend to be a beginner, even if we don't see much of that. There are some minor characters. I fucking lost it at the glasses hat guy basically being Yakuza. I think that's what they implied in the disco chapter.
I think they just said that he's the owner manages the building itself where the card shop too is, I think. I wasn't exactly sure myself.
Okay, they referred to him as the Don behind it, so I basically gathered it from that.
Though I will say, I only remember Toru as the only one I remember for the card shop with a name, because everyone else are referred to as either manager, manager's wife, the boss, or Gobu-san.
There was the goblin guy who wasn't very memorable, and also there was the fucking groomer.
Yeah, that was Toru, and the goblin-san was Gobu-san.
Yeah, okay.
He had a name, but everyone calls him Gobu. I think because he looks a bit like a goblin, and he plays a goblin mono-red deck.
Tori, who keeps fucking grooming Emmy. In the first few chapters, when Gobu asks if Hajime and Emmy are dating, she names some of the guys that are her type, and he's like, so Emmy likes older men. Nice to know.
By the way, do we know how old Tori is?
I don't know. He kind of looks like he's in his 20s or 30s. Early 30s, late 20s probably.
Yeah, I know she is older than the two main characters, but by how much, I don't exactly know.
I don't know.
But either way, I wouldn't say he keeps grooming her. After that, I can't really recall a single point where he showed interest in Emmy.
Okay, how about the time when he jumps to invite her to a mixer? How about the time when he asks her if she has Valentine's chocolate for him?
Alright, yeah, you might be right. I'm conceding this point right away.
Okay, it's a bit of a personal thing, but I've kind of noticed that the manga mostly treats Emi's duels more comically, and particularly in the tournament. Maybe it was just the duel with Kurashima that.
Well, I mean, it's not like we even saw the duel. There was like one chapter end, oh god, I'm drooling him, and next chapter, I've already won.
Yeah,
Like, at the start, there wasn't even a single card shown.
I guess that's true.
And I wouldn't say comedically because her duels with Yakumo and the boss both were taken pretty seriously. Well, as seriously as a manga like this can take them.
Yes. Sometimes you've mentioned you really like the low stakes in this manga. That it's basically just two friends enjoying the hobby. Usually it's not a problem for me, but sometimes the reasons for starting duels are really quite flimsy. Like, oh, Tori, can we swap Christmas presents? I want it for Emmy. Oh, well, no, unless you beat me in a children's card game.
Yeah, that was pretty silly, like... I guess he did want to help him along a bit, but I'm not sure why he chose to have the card game as a bit there.
Mm.
I did like that game itself.
Yeah, that's true. There was also, like, long-term potential rival Emi's mentor, Kuon, who spouted some incest shit. He
seems more gynophobic than misogynistic to me. Like, he's not saying all women are evil. As soon as he sees Yakumo, he's hiding behind a tree. But yeah, so far we haven't seen too much about him. He's had there was one off-screen duel with Yakumo, one mostly shown duel with Hajime, and he's about to have another duel with Yakumo.
So, what did you think about the art style? I liked Takuma Sensei's art well enough in Shudan and Ballroom, but I think it really shines through here. I've noticed that there are very similar qualities to like those two jump starts. The ears in particular look very like that manga, but I also notice it looks kind of a bit more like Kurosawa's previous series. So that's interesting, I suppose.
I didn't honestly pay too much attention because art in just a slice of life series, which I'm counting this as, doesn't usually put me into that much of either it's good or it's bad. Usually it has to be more action oriented for me to really take notice, unless it's like really bad or really good. So I do commend him for how he can draw the monsters or the card effects when they're on the screen, with outside of just being the card art, which is just pasted on. And that's also something I want to mention, like, I really hope this gets an official release, just so it's easier, so I don't have to like, every 5 minutes go to Gatherer and see, what the hell does that card do? Because, like I said, I got into this game about 10 years ago, all these cards are over 20 years old, so most of them I have no idea what they do. I just have to go to Magic the Gathering website Gatherer, which is basically like a Wikipedia for all the cards, and see, okay, what does this one actually do? Oh, that! Oh, that's a real clever play.
Speaking of which, I really like what they do I really like the gags they do to imitate the images on the cards with the characters, like the time when Emmy was learning how to swim.
Yeah, we saw the card out there. Let me see what card it was actually, just to be sure.
But yeah, she basically looked like the card presenting a shipwreck survivor.
Yeah, the card Thirst, because apparently Emmy can't swim.
Thirst. How appropriate. And anywho, yeah, I think that's all I have. So unless you have some random observations, so we can get into if we would recommend this manga or not.
Well, there's one thing I would like to bring up that I really like in this manga, how well it reflects at least my experiences with card games in general.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the game store itself. If you allow, it's a bit of a story time here.
Sure.
See, when I first got into Magic, I was out of town for my university entry exams. And since there was no card game store in my entire city, I figured this was my best chance to try and buy some cards. So I just walked into the game store, asked about the cards, And they were friendly enough that they gave me a demo deck and ran me through a duel so I could learn the rules, learn all the intricacies that I couldn't learn by just reading, like, okay, I understand what a mana cost is and that. And they could recommend the right cards to me on where to get started. Sure, they do that for business, but even these days, if you walk into one of those game stores, those are friendly communities. Usually anyone's welcomed, at least around here. They'll walk you through, they'll help you get into that stuff. And you start to learn names and faces around there the more you play. And that's what I love, the feeling of community, how this is sort of I don't want to say necessarily a family, guess I'll stick to the word community that's formed inside this game store. And how they care about each other and try to help each other out. Like, that's one of the best things about playing card games, is when you find that community.
No, that's really nice. I never experienced that, but this sounds like a really fun experience. I never got my interaction with like the fandom at large and card games and stuff weren't, I guess, that heartwarming. But yeah.
I mean, at least partially it might be that when you're dealing with people in person, there is a certain degree of etiquette that's expected when you can't hide behind anonymity, and people can punch you in the face for being a twat.
I suppose. So, overall, would you recommend this series?
Absolutely. At least for, like, Magic the Gathering fans, this is probably the best you're gonna get. And even if you're not, you might still enjoy it. I don't, of course, have insight to that, but you do, so how about you?
I think this was a really accessible series to explain Magic to me. I kind of feel like I would like to give playing it another shot, maybe in the future.
And in that case, I might recommend to you and anyone who would like to give it a shot, Magic the Gathering Arena, a free-to-play online card game that updates with all the latest cards, which is basically just being able to play the card game itself online.
I would like to say that this episode is not sponsored by Magic the Gathering Arena, but this...
Unless they want to sponsor us, hint, hint, shing, shing.
But this episode was sponsored by Alex, one of my patrons, because this was a recommendation from them. Thank you very, very much for the pledge and for your continued support, and for all of your continued support, patrons. All right then, so yeah, I would really recommend this manga, and if you're feeling like a heavier story, Masturbation Master Kurosawa. I think Kurosawa is a phenomenal author, and it would be a disservice if you didn't read the work. This Magic the Gathering manga has emotionally touched me in places. I feel like this is the perfect pitch for this series. I do really love the emotional moments in this. I think they hit really well. I love the character dynamics, and I'm looking forward to reading more.
Well, if you're up for it, we could sometimes also head to the Magic Gathering Arena, you and I, and just use some starter decks to see how you feel about the game.
I guess I'll try. All right then. So, where can people find you?
Well, you can just find me on Twitter @NuclearAndroid. I'm not much of anything else, so you can plug your stuff. You actually got something to plug.
Oh yeah, I've got a lot. Okay, so yeah, thank you very much for listening to Manga Mosaic. You can listen to us on so many podcast hosting sites, mostly anchor.fm/Wensleydale Cheddar or youtube.com/Wensleydale Cheddar. This is where all the links are in the description, so go check us out on your preferred podcasting platform. Remember that the YouTube algorithm is a dark abyss from sorrows and woes from which videos like these never resurface. And what helps us navigate it is liking, subscribing, and sharing the podcast with a friend. By subscribing, you can also get access to Duckface Diaries, where me and Hovin with an H aim to discuss the World Trigger manga volume by volume. So if you'd like to help me upload these on a regular basis, consider supporting me on patreon.com/Wensleydale Cheddar. In return for your support, you get access to rewards, such as, at the $1 tier, a shout-out and your name in the credits. At the $3 tier, requesting a short series to be covered on the Manga Mosaic podcast, like this one. At the $6 tier, a World Trigger Duckface avatar. At the $12 tier, access to the show notes. And at the $25 tier, requesting a series to be covered on a long-form video essay. High-level contributors get access to manga threads for series from the Shonen Jump vault I'm reading for the very first time, including my first impressions on chapters and standout panels. By popular demand, the new manga thread for the $3 tier will be about Yu-Gi-Oh! Very appropriately, also a manga about children's card games, I don't know, you might have heard about it, by Kazuki Takahashi. And if you pledge, you get to see me get my game on and give me a manga recommendation for Manga Mosaic. Help me reach goals such as reviewing World Trigger Bridge or more manga video essays. Now patrons can vote on the subject of a video essay every time we hit a milestone, which is a new thing. A sincere thank you to Milo Jack Stillitz, who composed the intro theme for Manga Mosaic. You can find his work at soundcloud.com/MiloJackStillitz. Thank you very much for listening to Manga Mosaic. Anything else to throw out there?
Nothing else except I'm looking forward to the next chapter.
Well, I would say that's... Wait a minute. Did you just summon a bunch of lands in one turn?
Yeah, so?
That's against the rules, isn't it?
No, this is a mana ramp deck. It's totally legal when I use the cards that allow me to play more than one mana a turn. It's a legit strategy, usually used by green color.
Oh, I guess that's fair. Okay, yeah, that sounds nice. That sounds really nice. Goodbye.